The president was in a state of shock, but fortunately, he hadn't been contaminated yet. Jim contacted me again to tell me that they had found the site of the alien nest, which was off the Pacific coast beneath a well-guarded oil rig. But we didn't have enough firepower to destroy it. Then, the president told me that there was an abandoned town near the coast that had once been used for military experiments, and that I could find a nuclear warhead there. But that was as much as I knew. I was going for broke.
So everything preceding this moment, including the text on screen right now, may lead you to believe we should search for the warhead. This is a bad idea. No matter how much you search for it, you will never find it, because that's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to run around aimlessly, hitting enemies over and over and over, until one of them randomly drops information that tells you where the warhead is. If I sound upset, I'm not really, but why would you do this? Why would you make it this way? At the very least, this is the first time we see aliens that aren't a boss. They're not really any tougher than normal enemies, but they hit pretty hard. So just don't stand in the way of their incredibly well telegraphed attacks and you should be fine. Now when they're in greater numbers, that might be an issue. But when they're alone, it's not a problem. We get a new gun this level called the Thunder. It's this weird thing we're holding that shoots rays of orange-red death. Still not quite as useful as those laser guns back in the sewer, but they're pretty handy, almost as good as the Gatling gun. Kills things very fast, which is what guns are for. There are a couple other new enemy types in this level. There's just a normal thug that moves kind of fast and zips around us. And then there are the guys holding these guns we've been picking up. Now the fast thug, just run straight up to him and grab him. That's all, don't worry about that none. And the guys with the guns, they don't tend to attack very much. Aside from, with the guns. Which is useless since you have a shield. So this part of the world is kind of easy, but that's okay because the second half more than makes up for it with its boss fight. But we're still going to be wandering around outside for a while doing nothing. So let's talk about another game that TOCA has developed. So shortly after Iron Commando, Arcade Zone went under. They tried to develop a few other titles, but nothing really came of it. So they restarted and made a new company called TOCA. And TOCA developed some games before their next beat-em-up, like Adidas Power Soccer, nothing anyone would be interested in. But eventually, in 1998, they had the funds and resources to release a remake of Legend. Just 4 years after the original, they released a remake for the PlayStation 1, which, well, it keeps the spirit of the original Legend, but it's better in almost every conceivable way. The gameplay, especially the bosses, is a lot more lenient toward the player, and instead of sticking to a single weapon, there are many other weapons you can pick up from the enemies, which all behave differently. So you're not just stuck with your sword the whole time. And of course the weapons take damage like they would in, say, Streets of Rage. It also had really arcadey narration, cheesy voiceovers telling you where to go next and when to fight, and to pick your character, the loud, booming, nerdy voice from arcade cabinets. It's also definitely one of TOCA's prettier titles with lots of graphical effects and lots of really nice sound effects to boot. It does feature 3D graphics, but instead of trying to be an open-world, full 3D beat-em-up like, say, Hidden Invasion or most 3D beat-em-ups, it sticks strictly to the side-scrolling game design. In other words, it's still a 2.5D beat-em-up, just the graphics are in 3D. But unfortunately, the game is almost as lost as Hidden Invasion. Very few people have heard of it, very few people have played it. It might have gotten more exposure if the planned American release had come out. It was going to be localized here as Knights of Carnage for whatever reason, instead of just Legend. But for unknown reasons, that never happened, and the game faded into obscurity, much like most of TOCA's work, and Arcade Zone's work for that matter. Man, are we still here dicking around? Like I said, you just have to keep punching bad guys until one of them drops the information you need, no matter how long that takes. Fortunately for you, I have the magic of editing, so you don't have to suffer the same way I did. And by suffer, I mean be mildly inconvenienced. So one of them eventually drops information that tells you the warhead is located in the theater, but if you go to the theater before killing that specific guy, you don't get to finish the level. I mean, I would have liked to look for the warhead myself, but maybe that's asking a little too much. I kinda have to question why the world government would leave a nuclear warhead just lying around in this abandoned theater. That seems like a really, really stupid idea. Maybe they were going for some kind of political commentary, or maybe they just didn't think too much about it. We're getting the fuck shot out of us by that guy back there with the thunder gun, and you notice it's not doing jack shit. Because again, our shield. It really, really bothers me when beat-em-ups introduce an enemy type that is almost completely useless. I mean, come on, you had to know that this issue was a thing. You can't tell me you didn't. I mean, I'm sure they knew about a lot of issues, but they had no idea how to fix them. Because Toka doesn't seem like the kind of person that makes shit just to make shit. They seem like very passionate people. They just obviously don't know what they're doing. That thunder gun is starting to hurt my eyes a little bit, but I still want to compliment them for giving it its own unique lighting effect. And I also want these grenades over here, if the Red Fist would let me out of its iron grip for one moment. So yeah, if there's any reason this level is challenging besides the boss, it would be because of the sheer volume of enemies you have to fight to actually get inside the theater. Alright, let's look around. Oh hey, the warhead! And as soon as we get near the warhead, the boss appears. And it proceeds to fuck us up. Now, this is the weakest boss in terms of health. He goes down very fast. The problem is that he's a stun-locking asshole. He's capable of knocking us down and then shooting us while we're on the ground, so we can't get up. And he can do this over and over until our entire health bar disappears. Reminds me of fucking Deathbringer.
My efforts had not been in vain, and the final battle was approaching. Thanks to that nuclear warhead, I managed to wipe out all the aliens. But I had to be extremely careful when I was carrying the weapon. The fate of the entire human race was at stake.